Hello, welcome to the Creo View functionality webinar. Today we'll be focusing on Creo View MCAD. Right. So for let's look at today's agenda. So the objective is to explain Creo View functionality focusing on MCAD. We're going to go through an introduction. We're going to look at PDSVISION's digital thread. We're going to go through the topic overview. So we're going to look deeper into Creo View MCAD. There's going to be a live demonstration. There's going to be a Q&A session. So if you have any questions during today's webinar, please type out your questions on the questions section. And then at the end of the demo, the live demonstration, I will look at all of your questions and try and answer them within this one session, right? So, and then from there, that'll be the closing, right? So, my name is Wisani Chabalala. I have 10 plus years experience with PTC products, and that includes both as an end user and also supporting, implementing, and training those products. I have a Bachelor of Technology in Mechanical Engineering. I have a mechanical engineering background. So before I started training PTC products, I used to be a mechanical engineering designer. And I am currently a PLM specialist at PDSVISION. Okay, so before we get into today's topic, just want to explain to you who we are. So we are PDSVISION, and some of you might know us as Boundary Systems. So we are a technology leader. So we are the first PTC global reseller and preferred services provider. So some of our capabilities are consulting, implementation, professional training, cloud, help desk, and we are in most of the continent. So we are in Africa, North America, we are in Asia, we are in Europe, we are also in the Middle East. Okay, so just a brief background on Boundary Systems and PDSVISION. So Boundary Systems was founded in Cleveland, Ohio in the year 2006. And 2 years later, PDSVISION Group was founded in Stockholm, Sweden. A few years later, Boundary Systems expanded their operations into South Africa. And in the year 2018, PDSVISION Group acquired Boundary Systems. And starting in the year 2020, PDSVISION acquires Net, which is also in Germany. Starting last year, which is 2022, we changed our name from Boundary Systems to PDSVISION formally. So we also have some strategic partners that we work with. So these strategic partners range from PTC to Keyshot, eTrudge, which basically creates viewables for Windchill and also publishes things like PDFs to be used for manufacturing. So let's jump into the digital thread or PDSVISION's digital thread. So with most companies, what they struggle with is integrating the different departments. So each department works as a silo. So you'll find that in the planning department, they have their own bill of materials, or they have their own documents that they work with. And you'll find that those documents are not shared with production or the planning department, as an example. So with PTC's digital thread, PDSVISION's digital thread, pardon, it aims at involving all of those departments, getting those departments to work together and having one source of truth. And by doing that, PDSVISION came up with this digital thread concept, which has 4 sort of like tiers. So starting with the middle tier, which is the product visualization tier, which is the gray tier there. So for most companies, they either have one or more of this. Like for instance, they might have CAD or a CAD generating solution. They might also have a simulation solution. They might also have some form of CAD management and technical publications. But then if you want to move out of that circle, you can use this digital thread concept to determine which other tools as a company do you need as the company starts growing. So for instance, a company could go from the CAD and the CAD management to BOM management. So we use this to determine the needs for our customers and to also guide our customers in terms of what they can look at. So let us now jump into the actual topic for today, which is Creo View MCAD. So these are some of the challenges that we've seen that companies out there are facing. So non-CAD users are unable to provide input on the product data. So as an example, the manufacturing department might not be able to input into the design to say, for instance, this particular design needs rectification at this point because it's unmanufacturable. They won't be able to do that. And the only way to do that at times is through emails. And the inability to review multiple data types. So if you have, for instance, in a company, you're using 2 different CAD authoring applications. As an example, you might be using Creo and another CAD authoring application, and all of those ones at the end of the day get to be used in one assembly or one main assembly. The problem comes in where the team from the one CAD authoring application want to review the data from the other CAD authoring application. Sometimes that is not possible. And there's too much time spent on importing manually and repairing the data. I know if you've used the likes of step files or IGES, sometimes if the export quality was not good, when you try and import it, you might find that they're missing surfaces, they're missing parts, they're missing features there, and making it impossible for you to use that very same CAD part or CAD assembly in your assemblies without repairing that first. So also the inability to support and collaborate with extended design teams. So as I said, if you have, or if you need input from production, or if you need input from sales, or if you need input from procurement or manufacturing departments, it becomes a bit difficult to collaborate with them, especially if you need them to have input in the design because they don't use CAD at all. The only way to communicate with them, or the one way to communicate with them, is through emails. It's through documents such as Word documents where all of that is saved. Okay. So these are some of the tools or the capabilities that Creo View MCAD has. So for the non-CAD users, they can open a CAD model and view that CAD model. They can also view the structure for that CAD model, and they can view the metadata for that CAD model, meaning that they can also view the bill of materials for that CAD model without having to use a CAD authoring application. Okay. You can also perform robust interference detection. So if the manufacturing department realizes that there's a bit of interference when they prototyping a particular product, they can always go into Creo View, open the model, run an interference check, and they can see that, and they don't need a CAD authoring application. You can also view, markup, print, compare, and watermark 2D drawings. So for a checker who doesn't need to have a CAD authoring application, what other companies do is that they print the drawing out, and then the checker will have to mark that out using a red pen, scan it, and then send it back via email. Whereas with Creo View connected to Windchill, you are able to make all of those markups, save all of those markups back into Windchill, and then the designer will be able to see what changes they need to make, if there are any changes need to be made. If you're not connected to Windchill, you don't have Windchill, directly from Creo View, you are able to send an email with the markups, meaning that you're reducing the amount of paper that is printed. Okay. You can also create high impact animations. So with the animations themselves, you can also see how parts will move in reference to each other. You can also check if there'll be any interferences between the parts, which is a major one. You can also review MCAD design changes. So if there's a design change between the one version and the next, you can use Creo View MCAD to detect what those changes are. You can also view model-based design. So if your company is embarking on adding dimensions, tolerancing any annotations to the 3D model, you are able to view all of that in Creo View. And lastly, you can also view PDF documents. You can also mark up PDF documents using Creo View. Okay. So now we're just going to look at additional capabilities. So Creo View supports major MCAD formats. So it supports, so you can open files from PTC Creo, so PTC Creo Parametric as an example. You can open files from there. You can open files from CATIA V5. You can open files from SolidWorks, Inventor, MicroStation, NX. And then if you are using a specific CAD authoring application that Creo View cannot open, you can always save those 3D files to STEP, IGES, JT, or VRML, and then you'll be able to view them in Creo View. You can also save 2D drawings to DWG, DXF, DWF, CGM, IGES, just to name a few. You can also view images such as JPEG, GIF, and TIFF, and BMP, just to name a few of the image formats that you can open. Okay, so Creo View MCAD also enables third parties to deploy PTC Creo View adapters through their open APIs. So a good example is with CATIA V5 with Theorem Solutions. So Theorem Solutions created a solution that publishes files that can be opened in Creo View or in Creo View format. Okay. So there are also other toolkits that enable you to reuse your Creo View data. So some of the toolkits are PTC Creo View Web Toolkit, which allows you to embed Creo View in web pages. There's also PTC Creo View Java Toolkits, which allows you to build custom Java apps. And there's also Creo View Office Toolkit, which allows you to embed Creo View in Microsoft Office documents such as Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. Okay. So Creo View visualization is an integral part of PLM. It allows the non-CAD users to be able to visualize what the design looks like without having the authoring application. As you can see on this image shown here, this is inside of Windchill. So inside of Windchill, you're able to see the visualization because Creo View is embedded in there, and you're able to interact with the model itself. You are also able to export the bill of materials from here. Okay. You can also do things like proximity searches, so you can specify that you want to search around a specific area, and as soon as you search in that area, it also highlights it on the structure as well. Okay. So Creo View's ease of use allows the different departments to use it, and thus supporting customer business processes. So as the example that I gave, if manufacturing needs to open the model and interrogate it a bit, check if there are any interferences. If there's a specific dimension that is missing, they don't have to wait for the drawing to be updated to get the dimension. They can open the Creo View model, go and measure it up, get the dimension, and production will continue. Okay. All right. So having one single source of truth is key because it allows you to also protect your IP. So if you didn't use Creo View and you had to share your model with a customer or a supplier, that means you'd have to share the entire original CAD file, which at times is sharing your IP, where if you're using Creo View, you are able to remove precise geometry, you're able to remove any metadata that you don't want to share with the customer or your supplier. And since Windchill, if Creo View is connected to Windchill, Windchill also forces or enforces access rights. So only certain groups can see, as an example, only certain groups can see the viewable at a specific state. So for instance, if it's still in work, only a certain group is allowed to see it. And once it's released, then as an example, the production and manufacturing department also get to see it. Yeah. So let us jump into today's demonstration. Okay. So what I currently have here is a motorcycle from Royal Enfield, which is currently open in Creo View. So in Creo View, a lot of people are looking at this would think it's a CAD authoring application, but it's not. It's an actual viewer that can do a whole lot of things, which we're going to see today. Okay. So with Creo View, you are able to interact with the model itself. So this is a 3D CAD model, so I can spin it. I can also specify how I'm spinning this. So I'll specify from where this gets spun from. And if you have any saved views from Creo Parametric, you can use those saved views. Like for instance, if I want to view the top, or if I want to view ISO, or if I want to view it like that. And in addition to that, as soon as I click on any component that's on here, it also highlights it on the tree. So it expands the tree and shows where exactly it is, making it easier for me to find which assembly that particular component belongs to. So for instance, just like that. And in addition to that, I am able to investigate this particular assembly a bit further. So I can move it linearly away from the rest of the assembly. I can also rotate it. So all of these tools are available here for me to move it linearly, just like that. And I can also hide this particular sub-assembly. Okay. So as you can see, and hiding certain components or certain assemblies allows me to see some of the other components that are part of that assembly. Like for instance, by hiding that fork, I am able to see the brake disc assembly clearly. And I can also further investigate this brake disc by isolating it, which means that everything else gets hidden from view, only that brake disc assembly is shown. So I can interrogate it further and have a look at it. So if I needed to, for instance, go and measure a specific section of this brake disc, like for instance, the outer diameter of that break this there, I'm able to see what that value is. And if I need to save that value, I am able to do that. In addition to being able to do this, I am able to specify which things to hide, which things to show. And if I show my entire assembly, I am able to go back to that fork assembly and restore it where it was. Please remember, whatever changes you're making here are not changing the original design. You're just making changes to a lightweight viewable of the actual design. So it's not the original design that you're making changes to, it's just the lightweight version of it. Okay. From here, as I said, I can also export or create a bill of materials. So from there, I'm able to specify if I want the entire structure or I want to pick a specific assembly. So if there's a specific assembly I'm interested in, I can pick that assembly. It also gets highlighted when I select it from the tree there or from the structure. And I can specify that I want the hierarchy generating the bill of materials. You can see that bill of materials is generated. I can also add additional columns from the parameters that are brought in from Creo Parametric or from Windchill. So I want to add an additional parameter. So as soon as that parameter is added, you're able to see it here. And from here, I am able to export my bill of materials to CSV format and further interrogate it in, for instance, Microsoft Excel. Right, so I can further go into this particular assembly that I just exported a bill of materials for and investigate it a bit further. Let's just assume that I am in procurement and I need to purchase parts that are made from aluminium as an example. I have the option to use the search color code. And when I do that search color code, it allows me to do a search for specific attributes. So in my case, I want to do a search for aluminium. And as soon as I apply that, you'll see that since I selected that this component should be highlighted in that yellow color. If I had chosen a different color, like for instance, green, you'll see under the quick search here, it'll update with that green. And I also have the option of seeing those components. So the other components that are not highlighted in green, which are gray, it lets me know, it tells me that those components are not made from aluminium, and the ones that are made from aluminium are the ones that are currently highlighted. And with that as well, I am able to take it a bit further and then create an exploded view from my highlighted components. So I can see which ones are made of aluminium. I can easily pick them up. I can also see it from this list here, and it's easier for me as a person who's supposed to procure all of the aluminium components. So we can also take this a bit further. Let's highlight this and can clear our results, and we can take this a bit further, go and have a look at our if there are any interfering parts that we have on our assembly, which is our engine assembly. So I am able to do that by just using that interference detection. But before I go there, I just want to show you that I've previously created groups, which will allow me to specify between which components the interference detection should happen and which components it should ignore. Because sometimes you do not want to run an interference check on fasteners. As I have it here, I have fasteners that I did a search for and grouped them together for this engine. And I also have the different groups that I created for the different components inside of my engine assembly. So now when I run an interference detection, I am able to exclude the fasteners from my interference detection and do a calculation. And with the interference detection, depending on how big your assembly is in terms of the number of components, it might take a little longer for an assembly with 1,000 components if you're doing an interference check on it, compared to an assembly with only 5 components if you're doing that interference check on it. And Creo View also gives you a lot of tools that will allow you to easily search for those interferences and exclude certain components. So now I have my results for the different components. So still loading up my results. So I can see, if I expand this lower panel here, I am able to see the components that have interferences between them. Okay. And as you can see, there are multiple components that have interferences between them. I can also generate a report. So I have an option to generate a full report. I have an option to generate a summary report. So with that report, what it does, it will show the interferences, how many interferences there are between a specific component. With the full report, it shows all of the interferences. It also shows in which sections those interferences are. Okay. So I'm able to see here, as you can see, part 1. It also tells me what the top level for part 1 is. So if I expand that, I'm able to see where part 1 falls in. And with part 2 as well, I'm able to do the same and see where the actual interferences are. And it goes further and it shows me the volume of the actual interference. At the moment, it's still running in the background to check the actual volume of the interference. And now it's done. It tells me that there's 75 interferences that were found. So if I click on OK, I'm able to see those interferences. I can also display the specific pair that I select. So as you can see there, it's that part there and this part that's also highlighted. So to zoom into it so that you can see it, so I can go through the different components that are interfering. So it shows me that that is interfering, and I can go through all of those parts. I can view a summary of that report. So it tells me that this is the quantity that's currently interfering between those two top levels. If I do a full report, it will show me the top levels. It also shows me the actual parts that are interfering. And if there's a volume related to those parts, it will also show me what volume that interference is. Like for instance, with these ones that I have here, it also shows me the volume that is currently interfering. Okay. Right. So you can export that report, the summary report or the full report. That's exportable to CSV if you want to further investigate it using Microsoft Excel. You can go and investigate that model. Okay. So going back to my model here, we can see that there is my engine, but it's not complete. And the reason for that is that with my groupings, I removed a few components from there, but then it's as easy as one click and all of the components from my engine assembly are back. Okay. So using Creo View, you are also able to create animations. So you can create animations within Creo View. So there's an animation tab, but please remember this is for Creo View MCAD. So with your animations, you can choose to record the movements or the moving of certain components. You can also record the camera. So if you move the model around, that action of moving the model around is also recorded. Okay. So as you can see, it's easy to select components from the structure itself. Once I select it on the view there, or when I select the component on the from the geometry this side, it highlights it on the structure, and I can go and select additional components. And Creo View comes with a set of effects that you can use for your animations. So for instance, I can select unscrew for my screws there. And I can also specify that once they're unscrewed, I want it to disappear or want them to disappear. And I can also select my sub-assemblies. And something that I also need you to take note of is that the geometry that I'm working with is from different CAD authoring applications. So the one that is currently in gray, that is from Creo Parametric, and the one that's currently shown in that light color, that is from another CAD authoring application. So I am able to work in Creo View with the different CAD authoring applications or with geometry from the different CAD authoring applications. And something that I need you to take note of is that this bar increases as I move my components, which means that it's recording every move that I'm making to my components. So if I select that I want to hide those, you'll see that the bar also moves right there. Okay. So lastly, I just want to hide my engine cover and also spin my sprocket here. So when I spin it like that, you'll see that it gets recorded. And when I repeat it again, that gets recorded. So what this allows me to do is when I'm done with my animation, I can play it back. Okay, or I can play it backwards so that it looks like the engine is being assembled. I can also detect if there's any interferences. So just want to play this back. So I can detect if there's any interferences in my moving parts. So I can use that detect interferences, and I can select the components that are moving that I want to check the interference in. Okay, so go and calculate that. So what it does is it starts it moving, and then it sees if there's any interference between the parts when they're moving. And you can also specify the colors that it should show for any components that are interfering. If you check in interference for multiple components, you can also specify the color. So the interfering part that's moving and the interfering part that is static. Okay. So in my case, the static one will be yellow. So as you can see, my case is yellow and my crank there is red to show that there is an interference. You can also specify that you need the animation to stop as soon as there's an interference so that you can interrogate it a bit further. So when we play the animation, it's supposed to stop before the end where the interference is. Okay, as you can see, it hasn't reached the end. I can see that there is, at this point here, there is an interference. I could take this further and then go to the static interference check and then check what the volume of interference is between these two components. Okay, or I can also view it here on my timeline to see at which point that particular interference is happening, and I can also export this animation to MP4 or WMV formats, and then that can be used for design review purposes, for instance, or that can be used as a change request as an example. Okay, so once I'm happy with my animation, I can save it and export it. But in my case, I'm not gonna save this animation. Right. Okay. So another thing that I am able to do is that using Creo View, I can check differences between two 3D components. So if I need to have a look at 3D components, two different ones, or the same component, it just is in two different versions. So I have this disk assembly here that I want to open. I also want to open another version of that disk assembly. Let's add it to the session. Okay. So there are my two disk assemblies. So there's the structure for the two disk assemblies. I am able to view or view state compare. So I'm able to compare the two states for those, and I can also specify what things I'm currently interested in. You can view, you can compare orientation, cross sections if there are any. You can also compare attributes. You can also compare exploded location, alternative representations if there are any, just to name a few things that you can also compare for the model annotations and also the components as well. Okay, so as you can see, these are the two different versions of the brake disk assembly, and it highlights and it shows what has been modified. In that orange color, it shows what has been deleted in the red color, and it shows what has been created or what has been added in that green color. So when I go onto the deleted component, when I go onto the component that has been deleted, it shows it there, and then I'm also able to see the new component that has been added. So you can see on the right hand side that has been highlighted in green. I can see that, and if there are any annotations or dimensions that have been deleted which were in the previous one or have been modified, like for instance, if you look at that dimension there that used to be 320, now on the new one it's 318. So you can see those type of changes and do a comparison between two versions of an assembly. It can also be with parts as well. It doesn't have to be an assembly. So now let's jump into looking at this when Windchill is connected to Creo View or when Creo View is connected to Windchill. So I have a drawing that was checked into Windchill, and it's still in its initial version, which is 8.1. So first revision and first iteration. So it has been only checked in once. And if I go to the history, I am able to see that there's only one version that exists. in the history for this particular CAD drawing. So I am able to open this CAD drawing in Creo View. So I can launch it from Creo View, open it, and what will happen is that Creo View will ask me to log in. So that is where the security comes in. So anyone who doesn't have access or who's not allowed to open this particular drawing will not be able to open it when they try and log in using their windshield login details. Or anyone who has, only those who have access will be able to open this drawing. Just need to reopen it. I typed in a wrong password, so it shows that if anyone tries to log into Windchill or tries to open any Creo View files that they do not have access to, Creo View will not open. So there is Creo View. I'm able to see the actual CAD drawing or the drawing. And as I am, for instance, a checker for the drawing, I need to check that all of the details that are supposed to be on the drawing are there and they documented correctly. I can use Creo View's markup options, like for instance, to say in this particular area here, since our company standard demands that there should be a isometric view, I can add a note there to tell the designer that they must add as per company standard. And then if there were other things that needed to be added, like for instance, if there was a spell check or spelling error that I, as the checker, picked up, I can go and add a note there. If there's a specific dimension that is not placed correctly or is not required, I can go and add add a note to specify that this particular dimension is not required, and I can save this markup. I can save it back into Windchill. So I can save this annotation set back to Windchill, and we'll say isometric view missing as an example. And I can also add my telephone number, email, and additional comments if those are required. Maybe we could say okay. Right, and as soon as I click on save, that gets saved back into Windchill. But if I'm not connected to Windchill and I would like to send this to someone via email, there's the option from within Windchill. You can send this representation by an email, or if it was multiple views, you can send that active view via email. Okay, and then specify, so it'll be sent as an attachment, and the person who will be receiving this will be able to see this particular drawing from there. Okay, so if we go back into Windchill, you can see that that annotation that I just created is here with the notes here that say add isometric view per company standard, and that was added by me, and this is shown, and then the user will be able, or the designer will be able to view this view with all of the annotations that I added there, or with that one annotation that I added, letting them know that they need to update the drawing and add that isometric view. So now I'm the designer and I have the drawing open. I've seen those annotations or that instruction that I need to add an isometric view. So I can open this drawing from Winchell and ensure that I check it out so that I can start making changes to it. So in order to fit the isometric view, I'll need to make a few changes like moving that drawing view there, and I can go and add the actual view that I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm looking for an ISO view and that is a bit big. Let's just scale it down for a bit so that it fits into the drawing. And also the company only allows no hidden views. None of the shaded views are allowed in the company. And I'll do a bit of cleaning up on the drawing so that additional annotations are not shown. So once this is done, I can go and check in my drawing and then just specify that isometric view added. And then the check-in starts. And then once the check-in is done, if we go back to Winchell on the browser and we just refresh our browser, it lets me know that there's a newer version, and I can go to that newer version and have a look at that newer version. So you can see that that is still in its first revision, but in its second iteration, when I go to the history, I am able to see that now I have two versions for this drawing, and I can open it in Creo View, open both of them at the same time. And then there is my drawing. So that's my latest drawing. So if I do a comparison for these two drawings, so compare, it'll show me what the difference is. If you remember, I moved this view to the left-hand side. I also added that view there. So I'm able to see the differences by using Creo View. It shows me the difference between the two drawings. I can also specify that I only want to show A. I just want to view what A looked like. A is our previous version, that's 8.1. And I can also say that I want to show B. So this is the latest version. I can also see, so I can flip between the two, or I can just say show only A, what changed in A, or only show what changed in B. And I can also go back to showing the differences. So it shows me that this view here used to be right there, and it was moved to the left-hand side, and this view was created. So that's on the 2D drawing side. So let's assume that I needed to make a few markups on the actual 3D CAD. So let me just close this. So if I go to the 3D CAD that is related to this drawing, which is this one, I'm also able to open the viewable for it. As it will show right here. So there is the viewable. So when I click on it, the same as with the drawing, it will launch Creo View, and I'll be able to see my 3D model, which is in Winchell. I'll be able to see it here and I can go through the different states that were created for it. So I can go and view all of the states that were created to ensure that all of the model-based definition annotations are added onto it. So when I'm going through it, let's just assume that I need to add comments. I am the checker. I need to add comments on this particular model here. I am able to use the design check option. And in design check option, I am able to select specific attributes or select specific annotations or even select the geometry itself and add comments if I need to. Like for instance, with this one here, we'll say this one is rejected. And the reason for rejecting is the designer needs to add tolerancing for this dimension because the holes are critical, same as this one right here. We're rejecting it, add tolerancing. Okay. And then for this one here, so these three, looked at the tolerancing, it's correct. Then we'll go and approve those ones. Okay. And then if there's a specific dimension that I'm concerned with, we can also add another design check here and add a note to say beware of tolerance stack up, for instance. And with this, I am able to check it back into Windchill, and the designer will be able to open this and see all of the markups that I've made here. Okay. So lastly, the bit that I want us to look at is embedding Creo View inside your Microsoft Office documents. So in my case, I embedded it inside PowerPoint. So assuming you have a design review that you need to do, you can reference the latest and the previous version of a particular design, create your PowerPoint presentation. Just gonna go through all of that. And as you will see, Creo View immediately launches inside of PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint, and the same things that I was able to do outside using Creo View itself, I am also able to do inside of PowerPoint. So you can have your design review, make all of those markups within Creo View here, and then save all of the changes. You can save them back into Windchill because this can be embedded inside of Microsoft Office. Okay, all right. So it's time for Q&A. If you have any questions, please put them in the questions section. Just gonna give it a bit of time. Okay. All right, there's a question here. And so adding dimensions. So you are able to add dimensions inside of, so you're not really adding the dimensions, you're just checking what the dimension for a particular object is. Like for instance, with this one here, let me just go out of design check. So these dimensions that you're currently seeing here, those are from Creo parametric. So they're coming from Creo parametric, and then you're able to view them inside of Creo View. But then if I needed to measure something that I don't see a dimension for, I am able to do that here. So if I go to the markup tab, I can select from the different dimensions that are available. So there's diameter, there's the angle, and so on. So if I wanted to check this particular diameter, I can see that that diameter is that one there. And if I needed to save this particular diameter as an annotation here, I am able to do so. So I can save it as an annotation. I can also do additional things. I can also measure the radius instead of the diameter, so it shows me what the radius is. And if we go here, then you can also see what the units being used are. Okay, so there's another question. It appears you have to have additional licenses to do all compares and animation, etc. above MCAD. No, when you have the MCAD license, it allows you to create animations. It allows you to do the compares that I've shown you today. So for the people that are currently using Windchill with Creo View, you're most likely using the Creo View Lite license. And with the Creo View Lite license, it's limited compared to the MCAD license. Okay, so if you want to, there's a request to show how to add a section. So if you want to add a section, if you go to the sectioning tab and you select that view section, you are able to create a section. So just going to create one here. And you're able to control, let's just flip that section there. So I'm able to section this part. So you can also do this even inside of assemblies. So you can create that section. You can also, you can drag the dragger there. You can also specify here what rotation you're looking for, or what along the normal, what do you want the X value to be, what do you want the Y value to be, and what do you want the Z value to be. You can also change the direction that your section is being created. So just want to go back and flip this so that it's easier to see. So you can do that to create your section. Okay, there is my section created. And with all of these, you can go and save this back into Windchill, or you can save it to your local PVZ. Checking if we have other questions. All right, so there aren't any more questions. If there aren't any more questions, thank you very much for attending the webinar. So we have training capabilities. If you'd like to be trained on how to use Creo View and some of the features that I showed you today, please feel free to contact us. We do the training virtually. We also do in-center. We also do on-site, so we can visit you at your company and train you at your company. If you have any further technical questions regarding Creo View MCAD, please feel free to email me. There is my email address. If you have any questions related to packaging, pricing, please feel free to contact our sales department at that email address, and also visit our website. Please look out for this video. It will be available in YouTube in the near future. Right. Thank you very much.